Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to the 200th audio chat on the QNewsPatriot Rumble Channel series. I am the QNewsPatriot, joined again for the second time by bioterrorism researchers and analysts, Mr. Dale Richardson and Miss Kaysha Richardson. My name is SG Anon. Patriots, we have quite a discussion teed up today, including new evidence showing the cooperation between Canadian companies and the build-out of the biological weapons that were launched against the world from Wuhan, China, and from other areas back in 2020. I think the discussion is going to be far-reaching and heavy-hitting. First, we're going to hear a quick word from today's audio chat sponsor, BF7 by Juvenon, and then we'll be right back to break all of this down. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. Patriots, we could describe the post-COVID world in a lot of different ways, but on a personal note, the biggest differences for my family and I between pre-2020 and post-2020 really center around two main areas: the broad public awakening that we talk about often on this show, and the challenges to maintaining and improving personal health and vitality. I can't speak for all of you out there, but with respect to that inside our household, one of the biggest changes we've seen over the last 5 years has been a noticeable drop in vigor and energy levels. Going into COVID, for example, I was working as a full-time upper mid-level business manager between 45 and 65 hours a week, and it was nothing at all for me to come home after work every day, even on the long weeks, split the housework up, and be an involved and active dad. These days, I keep a schedule that's slightly less than 45 hours each week, with different and arguably less stress than a few years ago, and by the time I hit 9 p.m., it feels like I could fall asleep standing up. I blame that on a lot of different things, from disrupted hormones and American frankenfoods to the biologically altered reality of our world. But over the last 5 years, I've also learned that a major cause of depleted vitality is a deficiency of something called nitric oxide molecules, blood-borne molecules that help relax the body's blood vessels, veins, and arteries, ultimately resulting in better blood flow and circulation to areas of the body that often find themselves shortchanged once our main internal organ systems are provided for. Big Pharma will charge you anywhere from 9 to 20 times the standard market value for their nitric oxide boosting prescriptions, when effective supplements for blood and circulation support exist and are on the free market already. I've tried a couple of these myself over the last few years, but I recently got the chance to try Blood Flow 7, made by Juvenon. And I have to say, Patriots, I think it really works. BF7 is a triple action supplement with clinical studies behind it that show a 150 to 200% increase in nitric oxide production and a widening of vessel and arterial channels by over 50% from baseline. This translates to better flow and more oxygen and nutrition being delivered to both critical and non-critical bodily systems. I've been taking 2 capsules right after breakfast each morning, and I've noticed better stamina, better focus, and more vitality, even on the days where I skip my morning coffee. It's made with naturally derived ingredients, including the inactive fillers, and customer reviews found online suggest people are noticing real results with BF7 in just hours and days rather than weeks or months. Additionally, Juvenon offers a full 60-day empty bottle money-back guarantee on their product in the unlikely event that a customer out there isn't fully satisfied with their experience. You can try Blood Flow 7 by Juvenon for a little over $1 a day by navigating to www.bloodflow7.com/QNP or clicking the link below today's video. Once again, that is www.bloodflow7.com/QNP, or look for the link in the description box below. It worked for me, and I hope it works for you too. Thanks. All right, Patriots, like we mentioned, today's discussion is going to be a very interesting breakdown of some connections between Canadian involvement in the pandemic of 2020, as well as some redress of grievances that are being sought by Mr. Richardson and Miss Richardson in Canada itself. I'm excited to welcome both of you back to the show. I know it's been a little while. How are things going?
Yeah, thanks for having us. And yeah, Dale's my dad, by the way, for anyone, because he said Miss Richardson, but Dale's my dad.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I mean, things are getting interesting here in Canada because the government is pretty much full-blown communist, and the hammer's coming down against anybody who whistleblows and goes against the state narrative. And we've been feeling it very much for bringing this information to light. So, I mean, people need to know about it.
Well, I have to say, sort of like we discussed off air right before we recorded our show, being radioactive in today's day and time against the tyranny, against the psychopaths that are in control, really, of most of the Western world, that's almost a great big badge of honor. I know last time we discussed these particular issues, there was a lot of pressure coming out of Ottawa and other areas specifically aimed at you all with respect to the research you were doing and the information you were bringing forth, several hundred pages of collated information and things that you had aggregated and put together. And now we have new information really exposing the deep level of cooperation between various factions of the government of Canada as well as private citizenry admitted to Canada that are not actually original Canadian citizens. Mr. Richardson, do you mind to take us through some of that new evidence and help the audience understand just how deep the web goes and really how detailed things became in the preparation of that 2020 pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm gonna let me get this here pulled up. I'm gonna pull up now. I'm gonna pull up a some documents here from Dr. Chu, or the CSIS report. This is something that needed to be done, that needed to be brought forward when they had the COVID select hearings. Can you see that? Can you see that there?
Indeed.
This is with Dr. Chu here, who's talking about what they were doing here about the transfer, and they talked about that it was, they tried to transfer four, and then they got the agreement from October of 2018, that they could go ahead to start transferring this over. And this was the Bangladesh strain of Nipah virus, Ebola, and some other pathogens that were sent over there. And it was, you see that the Chinese Academy of Sciences were involved and so forth. And hold on, let me bring up the other pictures here that will go ahead and basically show a little bit more in depth on this. One second.
Let me make sure I understand here with this particular document for the audience. I'm reading from it, and it says on October 18, 2018, a material transfer agreement was provided by the Wuhan Institute of Virology regarding Ebola and Nipah virus, amongst others. And if I'm to understand correctly, we've isolated that at least with the case of Nipah virus, it was actually augmented and made more infectious by Canadian entities and organizations and then exported from Canada back to that Wuhan Institute. Is that correct?
Yes, this was done in the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg. This is Canada's, well, it was at the time, it's only level 4 biolab. They're building another one in Saskatchewan, but this was where all of the infectious diseases and all that sort of stuff was taking place. And what would consider, they say it's defensive capabilities, but they were making it more viral. Like they built it using the same structure that, using the E. coli and the plasmid structure to start putting it, to assemble it together, showing that this was not a natural pathogen that they sent over. And they handed this over to the Chinese.
Very, very powerful and very incriminating, I have to say.
Yes, let me pull up the next one here. Okay, let me get the next one up here. There is this one. So now these are documents that were declassified by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. This was part of the parliamentary hearings that came out after the COVID Select Committee, because Justin Trudeau did not want to declassify this information, and there was a whole bunch of emails that went along with this that my daughter handed over to Lauren Boebert at Lone Tree, Colorado on May 24th of 24. This just continues to go on and discuss about the Wuhan project and so forth, and costs associated with it and so forth. So let's see.
We are in the process of applying for the official permit to transfer BSL-4 pathogens from Canada to China. So they literally come right out and say it.
Yes, they do. They say it right away. Let's see. I think we can go to the next one here. Yep, this is the next one. And so they're not hiding it, right? Like they're talking again about the shipment, right? And they're talking about there's a, going to Wuhan. It's got a budget of $250,000 and so forth of whatever currency that is, which is about 50,000 Canadian, and was to take place from June 2019 to May 2021, and plan to use reverse genetics in order to create synthetic virus strains, right? They were using the stuff that they were sending over was to be reverse engineered to create synthetic viral strains. This is prohibited gain of function research, right? So this this is a huge problem, a huge problem. And then this is with Dr. Chu. She's got, it talks about her ties to the People's Republic of China, which is Chinese, and then who she was working with, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and all these other places here in China that were active at the time she was working, right? And she has ties to Chinese military, like the Academy of Military Medical Sciences, and she's working with this and taking these pathogens from Canada and sending them over to Wuhan for genetic engineering experiments, like gain of function.
Just for
Yes.
context here, to help the audience follow along, when we talk about Dr. Chu, where does Dr. Chu fit into the Canadian side? You pretty well articulated exactly where she fits in on the Chinese side, but how did she come to be in the position that she was in Canada, to the best of your knowledge?
She came over from China, I believe it was in the 80s, and then she came in 80s or 90s. She came in and then she worked her way up through the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg to what she was a department head over an area of infectious diseases. And so she, along with her husband, Dr. Cheng, I believe it was his last name, um, they ended up beginning to infiltrate and started to take state secrets and send them back over. But Dr. Chu was the one who actually signed off and got those things to go over to Wuhan. So they came in like part of the Thousand Talents program that they have, and they go out and they send their scientists and so forth into different countries to go work with them. But what they're doing is they're doing that to gain their knowledge to send it back to China for them to do things like they did, right? And so that's where she fits in on the Canadian angle.
So if I'm to understand these documents correctly, and I appreciate you sharing them with us because it gives us something visually that the audience can sort of sink their teeth into, they can pause, they can zoom in and actually read it themselves. But we're talking prima facie violations of the treaties on chemical and biological weapons development, aren't we?
Yes, they try to say it's for, research purposes and so forth, but China's a hostile country, right? And you're giving a level 4 pathogen um, over to them, and this is where it becomes very problematic because where they began to find this stuff was I mean, it was in places that it shouldn't belong, right? Because we know that they were working on it in China. We had Dr. Stephen Koi that he he spoke at the COVID Select Committee, and he said that there was contamination, and there was a couple other people that said that it wasn't just contamination, but it was actually infection. But we don't know unless we actually go in and test for it for certain. And this is what we really need to do. But we know that there's something definitely going wrong, and China's involved.
Indeed. And, Mr. Richardson, the last time that we had come together on air, you all had compiled a pretty significant package of evidence and information and had submitted it to a number of different authoritative bodies, including, I believe, the RCMP and others in Canada. And to my knowledge, they've basically just ignored it, which is sort of predictable given the Luciferian system that we're still dealing with and battling here in the Western world. With these new evidence drops and these new documents, has there been another submission to any of those authoritative bodies? And if so, how has that gone?
Well, we submitted it to and actually, let me pull some of these up as I'm talking to you so that people can see. Where is that here? So we've got a couple of documents where they talk about explicitly that they're saying that 4 or 5 patients were infected with the Nipah virus, right? And this was from the strain that came out of Wuhan. And this is a letter that somebody sent out. And then we'll go through a couple of them that also talk about the same contamination. So this is the identical strain of what was sent over. So while we were doing this and discovering this, we actually resubmitted all of this new information because we had some of it, but not this latest one with the multiple confirmations of it. We had one document that stated that we knew that it went over, which was enough for probable cause to investigate. But then we started to show the compounding efforts of them doing this with paper after paper corroborating this. And we submitted it in a petition for redress of grievances, and we gave it to a number of the members of the legislature of Alberta. And we also gave it in person to Mickey Amery, who is the Attorney General of Alberta. This was just a little over a month ago. He said he'd be in touch, but we have not heard back from him yet, which is, given the national security ramifications of this, that's way too long. Way too long.
Powerful. So with respect to these new redresses that have been submitted, and you said it was submitted in Alberta, have they also been submitted to any federal authorities inside Canada?
Not yet, but we're working on that because this is something that there are issues that are both on the provincial level and the federal level. Because in Canada, the administration of justice is done all through the provinces. We don't have a federal court system. The federal issues are dealt with provincially in the courts, and the federal government appoints the superior court judges to deal with that. But the province controls the entire administration of justice. So you have to kind of work at this on a double level. And this also again talks about, you know, the Nipah virus and other contamination and so forth that was found in these samples that were put in by Dr. Shi Zhengli. And this was what they were working on at Wuhan. So this is a huge problem, right? Fauci was aware of the transfer of the pathogens from the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg to Wuhan, and he actually suppressed it, right? And said that we need to, like, we don't want conspiracy theories to swirl around this, and so forth. And the biggest issue that they have is that we know that there was a biocontainment breach because the Bangladesh strain of the Nipah virus is a level 4 pathogen, and it has to be contained within in very, very stringent engineering controls. They were working on COVID in level 2 for the most part. That's a huge problem. And then where they found the contamination, or where they found that in there, that lab would never design to have infectious clones in it. It was not. So you have problems all around.
Sort of very powerful to witness all of this on display in a document form. I want to shift from that, if I can, to the more human aspect here. I know that there's been quite a toll exacted on your all's family as a result of these events and your research and your persistence in just standing up for what is right and what is just. I want to invite Ms. Kaysha, if I can, just for a moment, to talk about basically the blacklisting, the radioactivity that has come to her as a result of this. Do you mind, if you don't care, to share a little bit about how that process has gone and really what you're hoping to see resolved as a result of it?
Yeah, so as you know, already, when we were first, whistleblowing this many years ago, obviously I worked for the provincial government, and they came after me for, bringing forward some OHS complaints. That's the same as like OSHA laws in the United States. And I ended up getting a lot of pushback when I went and brought the information to the United States, actually. I was kind of blacklisted there, I guess, too. I'm Indigenous, so I'm American Indian under the Jay Treaty on both sides of the border. And so that means I have rights to, work, live, retire, whatever, study in either country, and, come and go as I please. But I was heavily restricted. I was, taken by ICE at the border despite being fully documented, with my passport, birth certificate, long and short form originals, my native card, driver's license, and all, like, everything that you need. And they just took it and then, imprisoned me for many, many months until, you know, uh, the Canadian consulate in California was like, "Hey, she's Indigenous. Let her go. This is crazy." And then the immigration people forced me to live with single American men for many years that trafficked me around the state. So it's like I got so much pushback, and I wouldn't get any help from, police or anything. I was like drugged, raped, beaten, held at gunpoint, all over the states. I was in and out of shelters for victims of human trafficking. Like, I was sleeping on the street sometimes, just like, trying to get in shelters. And police would not do anything. It didn't matter. They knew that people were like previously like criminals, like they had, records, extensive records and things like that. And um it was all to kind of like try to shut us up, to prevent us from actually getting that information forward. And we've given this information to people like Lauren Boebert. We posted that video online. We gave it to her at an event and even had a private meeting with her after, and she thanked us for the information. But her aide just went around saying that, I was a Mexican to prevent, like an illegal Mexican or something, to prevent them from actually putting the information forward, which is crazy because that wouldn't change the information that was handed to them. But um, that persisted. Even I had, random American citizens post online about how they lured me into their homes so that they could get me deported by ICE, which didn't happen. They used private citizens to force me across the border. Now that I'm back in Canada, it's been, hard for me to actually get a job back despite all the work experience I have working for the provincial government, private, doctors' offices, hospitals, prisons, things like that, education as like a substitute teacher. And I can't even get a job at like a gas station or like McDonald's at this point. So, we've had a lot of blacklisting and people coming after us, and we've been completely devastated from the whole experience and lost everything. But, like you said, it's better to be radioactive and, stand for the right thing than, you know,
I have to say that story is astoundingly despicable, and our hearts here at QNewsPatriot go with both of you for the incredible work that you've been doing. Mr. Richardson, sort of on that note, we've submitted it now to the Alberta government. We're waiting to hear back from those provincial authorities about what they're going to do with it, if anything. Suppose for a moment that they do nothing with it. What is the recourse with that? And then suppose that they do, how would that particular sequence of events, in your mind, begin to play itself out in a positive way?
Well, I don't expect them to do something because of the ramifications. Like, know that there's some people that want to do what's right, but there's also a lot of resistance against this because of who it implicates. Because there are people that are implicated in their current government and in the federal government and so forth. But the way the petition for redress of grievances, because it came from the the British system, which both of our legal systems came from the Westminster parliamentary system. You guys have it codified in the First Amendment. We have it as a common law, and it's protected by Section 2 of the Charter, and this is strengthened by Article 13 of the Convention Against Torture, because the petition that we have was signed by Arthur Pawlowski, Derek Reimer, myself, and my daughter, and we were all subjected to torture and cruel and unusual punishment, which is a huge no-no. And so we have to get the people together to push this, because everybody has a vested interest, because this is tied to COVID, it's tied to the corruption in the courts, it's tied to cruel and unusual punishment, it's tied to human trafficking, it is tied to child trafficking, because this is what they were using to suppress the work that I was doing. Because my youngest daughter was trafficked through the courts and used for financial gain and to destroy me. And then my oldest daughter was literally trafficked, drug beaten, and raped, and so forth, because of all of this, right? And people tried to coerce her and say, well, we're going to stop this. But what we can do as a people, because everybody's affected by this, is to hold the government accountable by pushing this information to them. We have an action plan that we have that will show people how to write letters, emails, phone calls, show up in person, video this, put it online, because public servants, they don't have any rights. You can record them, and you can, that they don't have rights. They have a job description. And so that we can put pressure on the government to do this, because it's the will of the people that will make this go forward.
It very much seems, as we've watched the years drag on from the 2020 event and then on up until the present day, that really the only recourse is a massive unification of we the people towards a common push, a common aim, and a common goal. My last question I'm going to level for both of you, but I'd like Ms. Kaysha to answer first, is how can people, the average onlooker, the average audience member, listener to this show, how can they most effectively reach out to you all and support that effort, and what steps can they take?
Well, yeah, they can reach out to us. Like we have our social media platforms. So we have like the CARES Project. That's the and then KARIS. That's the CARES Project on Rumble, Twitter. We have my personal account is Kaysha Rick, Kaysha KAYSHARIC. I think what my father said is the best approach, coming together behind a petition for redress of grievances, because we need to come together and collapse the system ourselves by putting the pressure on the people at the top. Like people think that the people at the top are just going to do their job because they have some sort of emotional vested interest to do it, and they think that they can use emotions to pull at their heartstrings. But a lot of these people are very, cold to the fact, because they already know what's going on and they don't quite frankly care. And it's our job to hold them accountable. Like they derive their just powers by the consent of the governed. So if we don't do something, nothing's going to happen. And it doesn't matter what kind of evidence you have. If we don't come together and put it under this, it's not going to have the same effect, because like even for myself, I have videos of me getting like raped and assaulted, and like multiple accounts, and the police have it, and it doesn't matter. Like I've been attacked by pit bulls from traffickers, and even forced to make these videos, even with like open flesh and stuff. No matter how vile of evidence that you have, these people don't care. I even just saw like something the other day showing that a police officer was using the videos of exploited children that he was given for evidence, and repurposing them, and getting off on them himself. So it's like, we have to do something. We can't expect people in their jobs, unfortunately, to do the right thing. I know that sucks, and it's terrible on the victims, because you shouldn't have to suffer that way, to constantly be investigating and going through things yourself. But we're at a very crucial point right now, where we have a very slim window of opportunity, and I think if we don't take it, we're going to severely regret it. So yeah, I doubled down on what my dad said is the solution, for sure.
Well said, Mr. Richardson. Your final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull up here so people can see where to go, because we have a website. Like, I mean, we could use any kind of support, obviously financial support, because we've been completely destroyed. We want to get this information into the hands of the people, because we've been printing them out and taking them in person to people. And I will show here. So this is the website. It is dsrcaresconsulting.com/the CARES project. This shows a video of me serving the initial Alberta petition 2 years ago in Edmonton, and how hard it was in the Canadian government to actually get this done, because they tried to block access. It shows you how to go through it here.
Oh, I don't see it on the screen.
Oh gosh.
Is it on the screen? I don't see it.
It's not here. Let me switch this. Oh, there we go. There. Now you should be able to see that.
Yeah,
there you go. I was talking myself. So yeah. So this shows you where we're at, right? And so shows me going in there talking about that, serving the initial one 2 years ago. It gives you the action plan on what we do here for Alberta, and I have ones tailored for the different states that are a little bit further down. And
yeah, Tina Peters signed one.
Yes, this is the one where Tina Peters signed, and this will definitely help her and put pressure on the government, because Senator Mark Baisley took that there, and anybody can go and watch the video, and you can see there where we have the scripts and everything else like that. And then we have, the petition. This is the most recent one here in Alberta, which I suggest that everybody should look at. It has the evidence that I was going over with you here, and some of the stuff that we went through as a result of it. And then here, if people want to support, we have a donor box here that people can go to, and it also has the action plan. This is to get this into the hands of the people so that we can come together and get this out. Because the way these are constructed, they used both treaties, the Constitution of the United States and Canada, and because of the principles of comity, this applies to both countries. And because my situation, my daughter's situation, both crossed borders, we have that unique ability that we can use the leverage the best of both countries to use in favor for the people. And we have petitions in Texas, Colorado, Arizona, Michigan, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, and we're planning to do some more before we go federally in both countries.
Absolutely powerful and amazing information. Thank you both heartily from everyone here at QNewsPatriot for the work you're doing. For the audience out there, if you'd like to learn a little bit more, connect, and get involved, you can navigate to dsrkarisconsulting.com. It's sort of packaged all there, very easy and user-friendly to operate and engage with. This is SG and On. I'll be back with each and every one of you again soon on the QNewsPatriot Rumble. God bless everyone. Stay safe today, and thanks. Bye-bye.